Hi everyone, I'm Kisha Tyrrell, your host of Beauty and the Wise, the ultimate lifestyle and wellness podcast where we encourage women over 40 to redefine the narrative around aging well. Whether you call it aging well, aging gracefully, empowered aging, healthy aging, or even anti-aging, we are here to provide you with the tools and tips that you need to redefine the narrative. We were going to talk about all things from hormonal health, to fitness, to nutrition, beauty, and skincare, of course, mental health, sexual wellness. Nothing is off limits. It's all about providing you with the tools so that you can advocate for your own health and well-being. Today's episode, we are going to focus on fitness. One of the things that I've realized as I have gotten older is the way that I used to work out has changed tremendously, not only with the type of exercises, but the frequency. Today's guest, Dave Wolffe of Fit for Life Gym, is going to help us navigate this wellness and fitness journey. Welcome, Dave, to Beauty and the Wise.
Well, thank you very much. I feel incredibly honored to be on this episode. That was a mouthful, and I think you touched on a lot of issues that are very important to me personally. Yeah.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we could do this. So let's just start at the beginning.
Sure.
Dave, how did we get to Fit for Life? Where did this come from? How did you develop this business?
Good question. Like a lot of people, I fell into it. I would say to you, I go back. I was always an avid a fitness person. I played a lot of sports growing up, high school, post-high school, played football, cricket. And what I started to notice that people would get older and it was like they just dropped off a cliff. So, men that I looked at that played high level football would get to like 35 and then I would see them, they looked different. So I began this little journey in terms of how do you age well? How do you stay fit for life? So I got into more fitness. I got certified as a personal trainer. Then I got certified as a group trainer and then as a strength and conditioning coach. And I started doing these little workouts outdoor. It started about 15 years ago at outdoor parks.
Okay.
And it just kept growing. It kept growing. It kept growing. It kept growing. It got to a point where it became obvious that this was my passion. And I'm going to turn this little hobby into a career. And Fit for Life was born. I've been at my location now, which is on the corner of Front and King Street for about 8 years. And I'm doing pretty good. I found my niche.
Good stuff. Okay, so you touched on a few points. Let's start at the beginning. As we get older, like you said, the frequency of how often we exercise. I remember I used to work out every day, maybe even twice a day sometimes. And then I realized I can't do it anymore with career, family, all these responsibilities, and then trying to squeeze in a workout.
Yeah.
How do you encourage your clients how do you get them motivated? Where should people even start?
Good question. So that's about motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the wind. I would say you need to be disciplined. You need to understand the reason why exercise is so important. How I put to people, you have to have a why. Everyone has a different why. Once you find your why, that gives you the discipline to get up and go. To your point, though, when you do get older, it's a very strategic way of working out. So every workout is not the same. Monday might be weights, hardcore. Tuesday, your body just needs to swim. It might need yoga. It might need Pilates. So when we say exercise is not one form, but the importance of moving your body, engaging your body. It could be deep breathing. It could just be like doing some grounding work. So when we say exercise, it's important to learn as you get older what the body needs and then give it that.
Okay, so let's break that down.
Sure.
Because we're talking about, strength training.
Sure.
We're talking about cardio.
Sure.
And we're talking about stretching and, slowing down.
Sure.
Obviously, everybody has a routine and it's about finding that balance.
Absolutely. So, obviously but see, the thing is that it's like a pie. Everything, all the aspects of training has their benefit. So obviously we know strength training in particular for everyone, but in particular women, osteoporosis, bone density, women are obviously at a higher risk for osteoporosis. So, and then women are also losing muscle mass at a rapid pace, past 40. I think the last stat I saw was 3 to 5% per year in muscle mass. So I always think of muscle mass as like an investment in the bank. If I told you were losing 10% every year, you would be like, oh my God, let me go ahead and take care of that. But we don't take muscle mass the same. So strength training has its place, putting some resistance to the muscles, what we call type 2 fibers. So there's type 2 fibers being stretched, engaged, then they adapt, and then they grow, they get stronger. But to your point, you can't strength train every day because part of the process is also rest,
Yes.
recovery, feeding it, and then you go back to it. So I think all the elements need to be incorporated. Strength training needs to be the fundamental, I guess, pillar. And then obviously some rest, some cardiovascular. So cardiovascular comes from the word cardio, which talks about your heart. So we know the heart's important, heart health. So cardiovascular training is important. Get your heart. I saw a study again that one of the biggest indicators for longevity was your VO2 max,
Okay.
which is the amount of oxygen your body can produce
Okay.
in a minute, like, while you're under load. So VO2 max has one of the most significant predictors of how a person would finish their life, meaning, again, how much oxygen your body can produce. So how much can you exert energy and your body can still, I don't want to get too technical,
I
but
know,
yeah.
but how do you test for that? Like,
So
how do you,
there's various tests you can do to test a person's VO2 max. But even I think when people are unfit, one of the telltale signs of unfitness is recovery.
Okay.
So, we define fitness as being able to exert energy and recover. So person A parks a car at Bull's Head. They walk from Bull's Head to the job and they get to the job, they're out of breath. That would be unfit versus someone who can go for a hill run, catch their breath, recover. So the faster you can recover from the exertion will be an indicator of the more efficiency of your heart. Yeah, does that make sense?
It does.
So
I was
we can do these fancy tests, or we can just go for a little walk.
I was just thinking, I take the steps at work every day, and while I'm at the top and I'm out of breath,
for sure.
But I do recover by the time I get to my desk.
And that is the key.
Okay.
The key is the ability to recover.
Okay.
The person who cannot recover efficiently or adequately will be deemed to be unfit or unhealthy, and then that would be the risk, because now we know that you're not able to. Your VO2 max is not very high, and you can't recover. So essentially, we can use a fancy test, or we can just we can know by when we exert energy. And that could be a spin bike. It could be going for a bike ride. It could be going for a swim. But once you start to exert energy and your heart rate gets elevated, and then you're not able to get as much oxygen into your body, you're in trouble at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to, I know we're going to talk about these different pillars, but strength training. Okay, as a woman, whenever I would hear strength training and exercise and lifting weights, I don't want to look like this, but I do want to, trim and, lose fat, but I don't want to look like I'm about to enter a bodybuilding competition.
And that's a very, very common, naive statement, and I'm saying to be kind, that women make. The amount of weight you would need to push or to load to become a bodybuilder or get big muscles is significant. What we're talking about any type of resistance training that puts load on the muscles. Okay. And the reason why that's important is that the way muscles work is they have to be engaged. They have to be sort of pushed a little bit. And what happens, we call it adaptation, which means the muscle works under load. It has to adapt to that load, and therefore, when it recovers back stronger, and it develops more. Okay. So the reason why we have to do that is because as we're getting older, we know we're losing it. So if we're losing it and we're not doing anything to counteract it, now we're doubling down on the loss. So what we're talking about is basically any kind of training. So it could be riding a resistance bike, doing some body weight, or doing some light training to put load. It is vitally important. I always tell people, if you didn't do strength training in your 20s and 30s, you have to do it in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s. You have to do it. There is a direct correlation in terms of how you live your life, in terms of how you will end your life. Meaning that we all want to live for a long time. But what you don't want is to get to an age where you're unable to move out. So you want quality of life. And the only way to get quality of life would be to incorporate strength training. It should be number one. Okay.
And how often, does it depend on obviously your body type and the type of person you are? Or is it, everybody should be doing this 3 days a week?
Obviously, in an ideal world, let's say you take away husband, children, career, podcasting, side hustle. Yeah. 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
That's not realistic for everyone. So what I tell people is do as much as you can.
Okay.
If you can do 2 days, 2 days is better than none. If you can do 3 days, 3 days is better than 2 days.
Got it.
So the way it works is that obviously, like anything else, the more you do podcasting, the better podcast you become. I'm trying to learn how to speak Spanish. I practice about once a week.
Okay.
It's going to be a while.
Yeah.
So the same thing applies for strength training. If you can do it more, you would benefit more. So ideally, in a best case scenario, 4 to 5 times a week. Obviously, you would need to split it up. So you've got upper, you've got lower, you've got core, you've got back, you've got arms. So in an ideal world, you would have a trainer or a gym, and you would, or even something at home, and you would break your body down into parts. So Monday is like upper body day. I'm doing shoulders and back and arms. All right. On Tuesday, go back. I'm doing lower. So I'm doing glutes, hamstrings, quads.
Okay.
Wednesday, I'm gonna do some core, work on my abdominals, my obliques, my hip flexors. Come back. You know what I mean? So you can break it down any way you want. That's in the ideal world. If you don't have that ideal world, then you would just need to do what I call a training split, where you might only have 45 minutes twice a week.
Okay.
You can do full body.
Got it.
So you can hit some upper, some lower, some core in that Monday session. I don't get back to the gym until Thursday, hit a full body again. What I always tell people is do as much as you can.
Okay.
Doing nothing
Yeah.
is not advisable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so in the gym, because the other day I had this conversation where we were talking about the frequency or lifting weights. So obviously, when you're younger, you can probably go in and your reps are pretty high. Is it more important now, instead of doing more reps, but the level of the weight is more important? Like you want more weight as opposed to more reps? Or does it really matter?
It all matters. It all matters. But again, it's not as simple as that. Because what you don't want, like everyone's different, right? So, people present in the gym, for example, could be 2 women. They're both 40 years old. They both have limited gym experience. But one person has stronger upper body naturally, just genetically. So she can do more than person A. Person B has way more leg strength. Maybe she played sports. She was a runner. So her legs are stronger. So really it's individual. What I tell people to do is that you want to do a training split where you're doing between 10 to 15 reps.
Okay.
All right. In between that, you might find your max. So you're doing what we call an overhead press, where you're pushing the weight above your shoulders. You're doing between 10 to 12 reps. You can get 15. You always want to push the weight. So the idea is to take the weight to what we call the maximum capacity, or the muscle, I should say. Therefore, you get the maximum benefit.
Okay.
So look at it this way. All right, I'll give you an example like a runner. If I was a runner and I only ran 1 mile a day, I'll be very proficient at doing 1 mile. But my legs will not be able to handle 5 miles because I've never gone past a mile. So we call that conditioning. Conditioning just means the muscle has the capacity to do A, B, or C based on what you've done to it.
Okay.
So you always want to take that condition a little further. The theory is the more you do, the more you can do.
Okay.
So if I was a runner, I would then start off doing a mile for the first 2 weeks. On that 3rd week, I'm pushing to 2 miles,
Okay.
hypothetically. Now I'm 6 weeks in, I'm trying to get a 5K. Now my legs are getting more adaptable to that longer distance. So the same theory in weight training. You want to push the weight for as long as you can, as much as you can, so it starts to adapt and grow. And that could be different for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's not a simple answer.
Okay.
It just means that whatever you're doing, try to push it to as much as you can. So the muscle has to work for as long as it can, and then it will adapt to that load. If that makes sense, yeah?
Yeah. No, it does. Now I want to jump a little bit into this nutrition and working out and exercise. Some people are like, no, I just need to eat right, and I won't exercise, or it's not as important, or it's the other way around. It's all about balance, really.
Yeah.
And obviously, if we're talking about fat loss, and obviously you could do as many sit-ups as you want, but if you're not eating right, you're still gonna have that tummy.
You're in trouble.
In there.
Yeah, for sure. Again, you're talking about 1 and 1A. It's. Use the analogy of a relationship. Which is more important, love or romance? Communication or quality time. You know what I mean? So they're all important. But in this instance, nutrition is very, 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 very important, because nutrition is going to do a couple of things. It's going to fuel your body. So now you have the energy to work out. A lot of times people would say, oh, I don't have the energy to work out. Check your diet.
Okay.
What are you eating? Maybe you're eating a lot of things that are loaded in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is obviously the first thing in the word says hydrate. A lot of water, make you feel bloated, make you feel tired, lethargic. Maybe sugar, gets you peaks, gets you valleys. So nutrition is going to fuel you. So it's going to fuel your workout. Now I have the energy to work out. That's important. Number two is going to help you recover because now you're working out, you're exerting energy. Part of the process, we talked about strength training. The initial part is exertion. The second part is feeding.
Okay.
Muscles grow three ways. They have to get worked. They have to be fed good food, nutritious food so we call that protein. So protein is what we call, it's a fancy way of saying we call protein synthesis. So protein binds muscle together. So it literally helps the muscle to repair.
Okay.
And then when you rest it. So those three things are equally important: fatigue, feed, and rest. So nutrition goes into fueling your workouts, recovering your workouts, and then let's not get into the other part, which obviously we talked about women and men who are getting older. You have to be very acutely aware of the food you're putting in your body based on the length of time you have been on the earth.
Okay.
Meaning that you have to, your gut health is super important. What you're putting into your belly is eventually gonna come out. So we call that metabolic health. So one of the things that's really big and real is diabetes. Type 2 diabetes could be solved tomorrow with exercise nutrition. We could just get rid of it. The first thing you do when you go to your doctor and he says to you, you're at risk for type 2 diabetes, he recommends two things. You know what he recommends?
What?
Exercise and change your diet. And then he says, come back in 6 weeks. And you know what happens? There's no type 2 diabetes. So we can change that tomorrow without even using medication. I've seen people come into the gym, what they call it pre-diabetes,
Okay.
which should simply means your doctor has looked at your blood, your insulin, your ability to manage insulin, which we all have to do every day.
Exactly.
And he says to you, listen, you need to change your diet and exercise, and then it goes away. So nutrition is super, super important. We'd have to spend a lot of time, fighting over vegan versus meat. There's benefit in both. At the end of the day, though, I think we all know the food that is going to harm us, and that is the food that is heavily processed. I always say if it comes in a box, a can, or package, it's probably not going to be good for you.
Okay.
Eat real food that was grown on the earth or came from an animal. Eat that. And the less packaging, the less processing, because the minute they have to put it in a package, they have to alter it for stability, for integrity, for color, for taste. So you're talking about artificial ingredients, chemicals, preservatives. Don't get me started, Kisha. We'll be here all day. Sorry.
Okay, talking about getting started, Dan. So somebody that's watching or listening, they know they need to move more. They know they need to do anything. They need to do something. They're intimidated by going to the gym. Or how would you encourage somebody where to start? Well, what to think about doing to start?
Well, as I said initially, and I'll get back to it, you have to have a why. All right. So usually in my experience, the why becomes the worst why. It is when someone is told by their practitioner they are metabolically unhealthy, which simply means they have one of the 5 or 6 major things that we're looking for. So high blood pressure, you do not want to get that. All right. So high blood pressure, no, that's your why. Now you got to lower it down.
Exactly.
Low blood pressure, low blood flow, high cholesterol, pre-diabetes, pre-cancer. So essentially, what I tell people, everyone's why could be different. So I got 3 daughters. I have a grandson. So my why is I want to be around to see my daughters get married. I want to see my grandson. So I'm very acutely aware of my longevity, my health. So it's always for me about being around and having quality of life.
Exactly.
That's my why. Someone else maybe getting to retirement age. And their why might be, well, when I retire, I want to go hike. I want to go to Peru. So you have to have that why, that reason, what makes you. Motivation is not the best because obviously I think everyone, for the most part, has some level of motivation. The problem with motivation, it comes and goes. Today I feel motivated, tomorrow I don't. When you have the why, it gives you that discipline to say, no matter what, I have to get up because I have a reason. And when you have that reason, so my thing to people would be like, find your why. What is your why? Why do you want to work out? The low hanging fruit on the tree of fitness. So if you think the tree, it's a big tree, it has fruit coming from it. The low hanging fruit in the bottom is things like losing weight. It's I want to get fit for my girls trip.
I want to fit in this dress. So
My girl's getting married in Cancun. That's low hanging fruit. I want to get, women say I want to get a nice butt. That's what the low hanging fruit. And it is a fruit in the tree, but the fruit is up a lot higher, that is riper and sweeter. Using that tree analogy is things like really making you healthy. You're going to feel better. So you said something earlier, which I'm going to just push back on.
Okay.
There is a way you could get older and get better. The theory is that as you get older, you do less. That is a lie. Someone told you that, and then you believe that. You could get better as you get older. The body doesn't know that Kisha is 40 or Dave is 53. It just knows this person still requires me to do A, B, C, and D. Therefore, it has to produce new tissues. It has to new cells. So you can almost regenerate yourself without getting too technical. So you can get better as you get older if you are intentional about it. So for me, that's like a higher hanging fruit. So you want to age well, you want to age gracefully, and everything is affected by exercise. So you mentioned hormones. Hormones are huge. So for men and women, we get to a place in our life where hormones start to get distressed or deregulated. And what helps with the balancing of the hormones is exercise. Stress, cortisol, you want to bring your cortisol down, exercise. So for me, what I would encourage people to do, especially people, and we're talking about women in this case who are getting older and struggling with things like, high stress, anxiety, maybe going to some pre-menopause or even indeed menopause, is that you would need to exercise. Exercise could help you in all those areas. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about stress.
Sure.
It's possible that you can exercise too much.
Yeah. Which is again back to what we said. So and I'm going to be clear, when I say exercise, I'm not saying running and jumping. So I'm going to bring it home for you. I'm going to be transparent. So one of the problems with overexercise is that your body doesn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress.
Okay.
So you're sitting next to someone who's going through high cortisol, who's going through low cortisol. It's going to a point where my cortisol was so low, it's depleted because I was chronically stressed out. Yeah. So that's why I said to you, as you get older, it's not how you train. I'm saying it's not how often, it's how you train. So a lot of times for me, training session could be a walk on the beach.
Okay.
My body needs to calm down. It doesn't need spinning. It doesn't need jumping. It needs therapy. It needs vitamin D. It needs some ocean water. It needs tranquility. And I go for a walk. That could be my workout.
Yeah.
On the next day, I might just do stretching. My body needs to be stretched and like get some of the toxins out of your muscles. So when we say exercise or movement, we're talking about all forms of it. Obviously, we know strength training has a place. We know cardio has a place. We already said that. But there are other things that we conveniently leave out, which are therapeutic, which is things like stretching, deep breathing, grounding, and obviously also like things like swimming, stuff like that. Those are important too.
Yes, you're right. Because to be quite honest, people say, oh, I need to start working out. I need to start exercising. They think they have to train for a marathon. No, yeah, absolutely. It's the various pillars.
And obviously, and then also in taking into consideration a person's age or their health, you might not need as much as that. But even for you, a little goes a long way. So if you're going, I saw a stat recently. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Don't quote me if I get it wrong. The biggest jump was, okay, it went from, if you went from zero, so if you weren't doing any exercise, nothing, and you went from zero to just 2 or 3 days a week of 30 minutes of exercise, they saw a 50% reduction in all-cause mortality. So let me put that again. So to your listener who's home and saying, well, I don't have much time. You go from zero, just 2 days a week,
doing something,
30 minutes, you would reduce your risk of all-cause mortality by 50%. So all-cause mortality is the four horsemen. So that's diabetes, it's dementia, Alzheimer, it's heart disease, and it's cancer. Gone.
Okay.
So let's say I currently work out 5 to 6 days a week. Let's say for some reason I started going two sessions a day,
Okay.
and I jumped to 14 times a week. My benefit would still be less than a person who went from 0.
Your benefit will be less.
So in other words, I'll say it again. So if you're doing nothing
Yeah.
and you just start to move, 50% benefit.
Exactly.
I can go double mines and wouldn't have the same benefit.
Benefit that they would have.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that goes to show the importance of somebody who's not moving, what it does for your body.
To start moving.
Just start moving.
Exactly.
So if I told you you're gonna reduce your risk of dying by 50%, so there's no medical intervention. You cannot go to your doctor and get a pill. You can't go anywhere get a herb that could reduce your risk of dying by 50%. Except exercise. So
exercise.
to me, it's a no-brainer. But hey.
Okay, so let's talk about personal training.
Yeah.
You know, somebody wants to come to you. They see you. I want to come. I want to start with you. I want to start with you. They finally start. You know, it may take them a few weeks to get there, but they finally start. Right. What does it look like? How does a program start with you? How do you get your person? You know, what's the steps?
Yeah. So I do a lot of training. I do a lot of different stuff at this point in my life. Obviously, I have my own gym, so my gym's a bit diverse. I always say it's a hybrid gym space. So I do classes, groups, teams, and personal training.
Okay.
What I do, I've been doing this for a little while, so you kind of know the end at the beginning. So to your point, yeah, people hit me up on the street, on Instagram, various social media platforms. I want to train for you. So I take that level of interest and I test it. Okay, I'm gonna use an example. So Kisha hits me up. I want to train for you. Okay, cool. Come to the gym. I'll give you a 35-minute assessment. It's free. Okay. All we're gonna do is figure out what level you're at. What are your goals? How much time can you commit to your goals? We're gonna work on a fee, a time, and then we go from there. So from that initial assessment, it kind of figure out if we have good connection, good chemistry.
Because this is a relationship.
And actually, that's you're stealing my line. I actually tell them that I said, like any other relationship, it needs to be sustainable, which means you have to like your trainer should like you should like the space, because we're going to be working together it's called personal training for a reason. It's going to get very personal, right? And then your trainer should know, in a real way, maybe you're on your cycle. So therefore your energy might be down, your iron's down. So it's a very personal relationship. You had to break up, so things happen. So that relationship needs to be sustainable. And ideally for me, it needs to be something that we can kind of grow into over a period of time. So the assessments first, and then I work backwards. What are your goals? Okay. What are you trying to do? And then what I tell people is you have to be realistic. All right. You're not going to get anything from life if you don't work at it. You have to work it. People say, does fasting work? Sure. Does eating regularly work? Sure. Does eating vegan work? Sure. Does eating meat work? Sure. Everything works if you work it. Okay. Everything works if you work it. Yeah. There's no magic pill. So what I always tell people, if you're willing to work, you'll reach your goals. So that's some level of consistency, some level of time. So we work out where, everyone's different. Someone might do 2 days a week. Someone might have more time. They do 3 days a week. So we work backwards from goals. We find a time, and then we try to have these little short incremental goals. So the first 6 weeks might be losing weight, getting fit. And then the second tier might be like, getting some muscle, maybe like working on my shoulders, working my back, working my legs. And then we just kind of break it down. And ideally over a period of time, people reach their goals. But it takes time. I think people are very, unfortunately, we're in a time where everything is like, no, right? So people don't understand it takes time. Okay. It takes time to get results. Like if you want to be good at something, you need to allow some time. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just like spinning. Just like spinning. Just like spinning, for sure. But if you allow some time and if you're patient, then I think you'll reach your goals for sure. Yeah. And I've had some clients who've done well. I've trained a very diverse group of people, young, old, people who are athletic, people who are very sedentary, big, small. And at the end of the day, if you apply consistency, dedication, commitment, some time, you get there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what's next for Fit for Life? I'm just getting started. I feel like I honestly feel like I'm just getting started, like, and even saying that as an entrepreneur, I've been doing this for about 10 years on my own. 15, I had another job. So I would say essentially the last 10 years, but I've gotten smarter. I've gotten wiser. I've gotten more efficient. I know how to generate, income, with my brand. So I feel like I'm just getting started. We obviously I had the gym. I just launched a spin studio in Warwick, which is going pretty good. I intend on doing another spin studio in St. George's. And then we're going to relaunch the meal prep business. So we're doing pretty good. Yeah, things are going pretty good. I do a number of corporate engagements where I go to companies, where I do lunch and learns, where I talk to people about, getting healthy. I talk to people about, how to live. And what I say, it's sustainable living, it's aging well, it's being at your best as you get older. And I really enjoy that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. So I ask all my guests, we come to the end. What would you tell your younger self? Given everything you know now about health and wellness and longevity and aging, what would you tell your younger self?
It's a lot, to be honest. But one thing I would say, and I would say it to the people as well, is that it's very important. We didn't touch on it today, but it came to mind, the importance of sleep. I think sleep is the X factor. I think if I could go back, I was very arrogant about sleep. And one thing about sleep is like the indicator light in your car. The light comes on when you're driving from Somerset to tell you to check the engine. You know what you do? You still drive it from Taunton to Somerset because you get away with it. But sleep, if your sleep is disrupted or you're not getting good quality sleep, it will affect your health greatly. So what I would tell my younger self is to prioritize sleep.
Okay.
Yeah, so sleep is broken down into recovery, light sleep, deep sleep, restorative sleep. So the importance of getting proper sleep is all a part of healthiness.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be important. I was very arrogant about sleep when I was younger. I would say things like, I don't need much sleep to function because my body would allow me to do what I wanted to do with limited sleep, but I paid a heavy price. Luckily, I was able to counteract it and then fix it, but I think a lot of people don't understand the importance of sleeping and resting.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you to Dave for joining us today. This episode and our other episodes can be found on MzuriWellness.com as well as Beauty and the Wise on social media. But yeah, if you always have any questions or any topics you want to hear about, drop us a line, send an email. Thank you.